Mary and Jim. Hi, Patty, Pam, and Jeannie. Whoa, Merritt. Hi, everybody.
Wow,
Sharon
we've
and
already got
Debbie.
60 people.
Oh, my goodness. We got tons of people coming in here. I'm not going to be able to say everybody's name, but I'm going to try. Hi. Hi, Linda and Tamara. Oh, hello, Amy and Ellery, Sabrina, Miss Sharon. Hi, everybody. Hi, it's so good to see everybody. I would like to let y'all know that um, we're going to be on live tonight. So if you don't want your faces on, you're going to need to turn your video off. But we are so happy to see y'all. We're happy that you're here tonight with us and Vision Forward. But we're just going to let people come on in as we welcome you here. Again, Rosalind, Julie, Miss Christy and Bruce, and Patrice, Miss Mary Lisa. So good to see y'all. I'm glad that y'all were able to come tonight. And yeah, we have you mostly muted. That's for our our safety, I guess. Hi, Mira, Pam. It's to help get everybody in here. All right. Here we go. We're still getting people in. Oh, yep. Just one or two more. If you would please, as you come in, put your names in the chat and where you're from. That's awesome. And if you are on a leadership team, if in an indivisible or a 50-51, we'd love to know that. We'd love to hear about that. If you, we would just, we'd love to hear about where you are in your journey. All right. So beautiful. Okay.
Seems like we've reached a little bit of a plateau, so we maybe can go ahead.
Okay. Okie dokie. Well, again, I will say hello. I'm Cecilia, and I am a member of the Vision Forward team. It's again so good to see you all here, friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome back to Vision Forward. Y'all, I just I want us to pause and just recognize real quickly what we are doing here together, okay? Even though we are spread across the screens, right? We've had 6 sessions, dozens of hours of work, hundreds of ideas shared, and through it all, a single thread: the refusal to accept that this is the best America can be. And did I ask for the next slide? I forgot to ask for the next slide. I hope we're on slide 2. That thread connects every person in this room, okay? That thread, that single thread, the refusal to accept that this is the best that America can be, that connects each and every one of us in this network of people. Over the past 5 sessions, we've articulated our shared values: the opportunity to thrive, democracy and freedom, fairness and equity, a secure and sustainable future. Now, these aren't just nice words, they're the foundation of everything that follows. But we've painted a picture of an America where your zip code doesn't determine your destiny, where democracy actually means everyone has a voice, where we take care of each other and the planet that we leave to our children. We've mapped out the policies to get there, the recipe for the brownie, as we've been saying. And we have strategized how to fight for it, even while we've we we work back to win back the power, right? We know we're in the minority. All of that was building toward tonight. Because here's the truth. Vision without voice is just a whisper. We can have the best ideas in the world, the most compelling vision for America's future, and it all means nothing if we can't communicate it in ways that actually move people. And tonight, we learn to speak our truth, not in sterile policy language. And this isn't about politicians on TV or organizers with megaphones. This is about you, your conversations every single day in living rooms and community centers, at dinner tables and coffee shops, the real places where people talk about what matters. You know what changes minds in this country. Do you? I mean, it's you talking to your neighbor. It's you showing up with clarity and conviction and compassion and helping someone to see that another America is possible. The most powerful political change has never happened because experts got the message right. It happened because ordinary people, people like you, took that message to heart and carried it into their communities. Between now and the midterms, we're going to have thousands of conversations. Each one is an opportunity to cut through the noise and speak clearly about what we believe and what we're fighting for. You're in this Zoom because you care, because you believe in democracy, because you refuse to give up after a hard loss. And now we're going to give you the tools to turn that care into conversations that matter. So let's begin. Today, we have a team of Cecilia. I'm Cecilia. We have Dr. Chris. We have Kara. And we have Jim. And we have Adrian, Joe, Melissa, Rebecca, and Laura. And most importantly, y'all, we have you, because without all of you, each and every one of you, none of this would be happening here tonight. All right, next slide. So, Dr. Chris,
All
welcome.
right. Well, yeah, thanks everybody. So welcome again, as Cecilia said, this is our sixth set and actually final session of phase one of Vision Forward because we're going to take a new direction and we'll talk more about that. But before we dive into tonight's plan, I just wanted to just revisit kind of a little bit and talk a little bit about how the project or why the project exists and where we're headed. So, Vision Forward grew out of our shared frustration after the Democrats' 2024 loss and the concern that we had about absence of a clear unified messaging strategy about who we are, what we stand for, and the future that we're fighting for. So the goal of this project has been to use our shared pro-democracy values to define a bold, hopeful vision for America's future, lay out a simple policy framework, and craft values-based messaging that communicates our pro-democracy vision. So in order to keep everything alive, from values to vision, policy to messaging, we organized the Vision Forward project into 5 specific phases. So we started by identifying our shared pro-democracy values and then laying out and imagining a vision for our country about what it could be. And then we outlined just a simple policy framework that charted a path to the future and created strategies and concrete actions. And that not only that opposed the authoritarian right, but also offered an alternative in the midterms and beyond. And the last phase of the project is where we are tonight, and that is to develop clear, powerful messaging that resonates with everyday people. Next slide. So I'm going to lay out the agenda for tonight. So our plan is to focus on messaging. In a few minutes, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca. She'll recap what we've already done in previous meetings. And after the recap, then we'll turn our attention to the primary focus that we've been building towards throughout this entire project, and that is messaging. We're going to review some fundamental principles of communication and provide some practical tools for everyday conversations that you'll have from this moment forward. And we're going to use two specific frameworks tonight. One is Say This, Not That, which is a framework that was developed by one of our colleagues that can't be on the call, Mindy Ramsey, but I want to give a shout out to her. And then we'll also use the 3 V's framework that Anat Shaker Osario uses in her work, and it's based on the work of George Lakoff. And then we will go into breakout rooms to practice. So after the breakout rooms, we'll end up with a wrap up, point you to some additional resources, and most importantly, talk about the exciting way ahead for the second phase of Vision Forward. And so I am going to now turn it over to Rebecca for the recap.
Awesome, thanks, Chris. So as Chris mentioned before, we've split the project into 5 phases. The prior sessions covered values, vision, policy, and strategy, which I'll recap. And that recap is important because this project does build on itself. So having familiarity with those prior phases will be helpful. Finally, we'll be in a position to develop the messaging that's value-based and consistent with our overall platform and strategy. So I'm going to zoom through a recap, like I said, of the last 4 sessions, starting with our first meeting, which focused on our shared values. And you can see kind of all of these bubbles here representing our values. And you can see some themes emerged, which led us to organize these values into 4 core beliefs. Lower left corner, we have our opportunity to thrive, which is around creating conditions where everyone can succeed and flourish. Democracy and freedom is around having a society that is inclusive, participatory, and centered on equal voice, rights, and power. Upper right-hand corner, fairness and equity, which claims that every person has inherent value, and there is a strong emphasis on caring for vulnerable folks and really acknowledging some systemic disparities that create injustice. And finally, secure and sustainable future, which is kind of a catch-all, but it reflects a society that honors truth, protects future generations, ensures dignity, safety, and stability, sustainability for everyone now and in the long term. So building on that and those core beliefs, we assembled the building blocks of the vision. And this is really the good stuff here. You can see our brownie image down below. We'll talk about that throughout tonight. But this is kind of the key pieces that we want to make it in our message. When we're talking about values, shared values, a lot of that is going to center on these 4 pillars. And when we talk about vision, which is another one of the V's, it's going to be some of these elements that are going to be part of our messaging. So just a preview there. After we developed our vision and had all of our pillars under there, we organized policy recommendations related to each building block of the vision. So you can see on this slide sort of a summary, and our colleague Joe put together this summary when he was communicating the previous phases of Vision Forward with some of our Illinois elected representatives. So that's pretty cool. It's making it out into the world. And if you're interested in seeing the full one-pager, you can access it from this link that's in the lower left-hand corner. And I'm putting the PDF in the chat. So you'll be able to find this page. It's page 9, and you can find the one-pager that way. Just one note on the policy details. We've referred to this before in previous sessions with kind of a metaphor. So as I said on the previous slide, the vision is the brownie, and the policy platform is the recipe for how to make the brownie. So in other words, our vision is the irresistible end goal, the thing that we all want. And the policy platform is the ingredients and instructions that you have to do in order to make your vision a reality. And so when we get to the messaging portion, we'll largely steer clear of all of this policy stuff, just because it is a little bit too nitty-gritty, not very inspiring. But for consistency, we did want to make sure that we had all of this available. So as we get toward the messaging portion, remember, sell the brownie, not the recipe. Okay, and this is the 4th phase, so I'm almost done. I know this is kind of a long wind up here, but okay. In our 4th phase, we focused on strategy, and that really, we had to acknowledge that Dems aren't in majority power at the moment, and that limits our ability to govern or introduce the changes that we would want. So in the meantime, our actions have to be tailored to that reality and to position ourselves as an opposition party so that we can retake power as soon as possible and limit the damage until we get there. So Joe came up with these 4 principles for coming up with strategy ideas. And they are all based on that twofold purpose of we're standing in opposition, fighting for what we want, and trying to mitigate harm in the meantime. So I won't drain them, but the next piece of strategy to know about is that it's important to consider the target audience, the people or entities that you are trying to influence. Some of them are going to be friendly to our movement. Some of them are neutral or unaware or maybe even hostile. So it's important to think about, how are they going to respond? What's important to them? So when we're coming up with strategies or tactics, you have to think about how it's going to affect them and how they might react. So by combining the principles that you see on the left with an intended audience, that's when you can come up with a tactic. So a specific action for a specific audience. And we have a couple of examples, and I'll move in a slide or two, you'll see a whole bunch of examples. So one moment on that. As we were combing through all of the strategy ideas that everyone came up with, there were some themes that emerged. And I think if any of you have joined the Ezra and Leah calls on Thursdays, some of these themes might sound familiar to you. Um, Persistence, just keep going at it, be a squeaky wheel. I've said this before, but I think being just a little bit annoying or a lot annoying is kind of an underrated political lever. Um, Experimentation. So like we got to try different stuff to see if it'll stick or not. Um, Let a thousand flowers bloom. I think I've heard Leah say that. And then tailoring. So as we mentioned, one size does not fit all. You kind of have to figure out, okay, who's my target, and then do something that's going to affect them specifically. Okay. Um, and then I mentioned that we would have more examples. So in this case, this is also taken from Joe's one pager that he's shared with elected officials here in Illinois. Again, you have the link. You can access that from the PDF. Um, and all of this is through the lens of tailoring our strategies so that they will be most effective at influencing our elected officials. And I believe with that, you are now caught up. So that is 6 months of work that these teams have gone through, and you are now in good shape to move forward with the messaging portion. And this is where I will hand it off to Chris.
Okay. Yeah, so okay, there we go. Okay, so our messaging sessions were actually broken up into two distinct sessions. So we're now on the second one. So in our last Vision Forward session in September, we focused on learning and practicing the Indivisible Truth Brigade's Truth Sandwich model for responding to misinformation in our communication with people. So how does that kind of relate to this project? So everything about this project is making you an effective activist, communicator, trying to convince people why they want to get on board the pro-democracy, or get involved in the pro-democracy movement. And so in those conversations, you are going to, you are going to have conversations where misinformation comes up. And so this will just be one thing in your toolkit where when that happens in a conversation, and it will, that you now have the framework. And so for those who weren't part of that last session, all of these are recorded, so no worries there. And then for this session, we're going to actually review communication concepts and develop a strategy of what to say versus what not to say. I mentioned Mindy Ramsey's framework that she shared with us, and we will be using. And then we will also be synthesizing messaging approaches from a couple different sources, with the content of the messages based on the work that we've done so far in the project. We'll have a couple of breakout rooms where participants will be encouraged to participate and practice the communication strategies that we introduce you to. So get your thinking caps on, and now I'm going to pass you on to Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe, and now we're going to get into the meat of things. We're going to be focusing on how our everyday conversations can shift the narrative. And kind of remember, this isn't about, big TV hits or leaders' speeches or things like that. It's about how we talk in our social circles, in our book groups or church groups, just meetings around town. So in this session, we'll introduce some ways to start conversations, how to listen to others, people's point of views, and then also raise additional perspectives. So importantly, we'll learn to talk, as I think Rebecca and Chris have also talked about, to people who agree with us, to people who maybe aren't so engaged in the political process, and hopefully people who can be persuaded, but maybe don't necessarily at this point agree with our views. And we're not looking to get into confrontations. We're looking to explore different views for clarity and understanding and common ground, and to hopefully move their thinking forward. So the purpose today is really to focus on those everyday conversations where we can really shift the narrative. With that in mind, we'll start with some of the foundations that Chris was talking about. And they'll be introduced by first Kara and then James. So I'll turn it over to Kara.
Okay. Good. I was going to say good afternoon. It's evening time, isn't it? This slide is all about the 3 V's that you saw on the previous slide. And you can see it in their values, villains, and vision. And I think that's a really good framework for having conversations. Some of your conversations that you get into, this might be just a little tool you pull out of your toolbox to move the conversation along. So it's where you lead with values, not the problems, not the complaint, but lead with the values that you know are common to everyone. And then you can highlight the villains. Those are villains, or there's the people or the things that are getting in the way of achieving those values. You can use contrast, what we want versus what they're actually doing. And then you want to end always in like hope and vision. And this is what we could have. This is what we could become if we work together. So it's really about finding common ground. And I love this. Hearts and minds aren't won by arguing. Don't argue. Everybody's heard me say, and I don't know. If you've been on the coffee chat, I say it at least twice a week. Don't argue. And when you get into the argument, you get out of it. You wheedle out of it because it's never helpful. Okay. There's just so many other ways to address things. So that's the 3 V's. Values, villains, and vision. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is my chance to kind of give you a teaser for a series of workshops that we're going to launch next year after the holidays. And this is an adaptation of some communication workshops I've used at work, I've used with personal friends and family, actually. But I'm adapting it to political conversations, kind of the nuances of political conversations, right? Those conversations just have a different nuance, a different way that they go awry, I guess I would say. So if you think about it, have you ever tried to have this political conversation? You're trying so hard to save our country, right? And your conversation, you make just one comment, right? And suddenly the conversation goes awry and it's out of control. You can't get it back. Or it gets stuck, it gets stuck like you say something, they say something, you say something, and it's just stuck. You're not really making progress on the topic, and you're just stuck in your 2 silos of disagreement. Wouldn't it be so nice? You ever feel like, wouldn't it be so nice if you just listen to me? Just listen to what I'm saying. I'm right, you're wrong. Just listen to me. And we all know how well that works, right? So, the other thing, a couple things that might happen is like this person is saying things and you go, I know this person. This is my cousin I've known since he was a child. I know he is not really cruel, and yet he's saying things that seem to support this terrible ice thing going on, and you just know they're stating things contrary to their values. Boy, that's an opportunity. And if you can learn the skills to bring that out, you can move the needle with that person. And lastly, have you ever felt like you get into this conversation, you just want to talk about what you care about and how concerned you are about the country, and then you get into this argument and it escalates, and you feel like you've impacted the relationship, you've damaged that relationship, and both of you are maybe, try have some common values, but you just can't talk about it, and then it hurts your relationship, and that's not what you want either. So if these things are happening to you, which they are happening to everyone, right? There's some skills that I tell you are not that hard. They're not that hard to learn. And they're very simple skills that we can learn that will improve your conversations and preserve your relationships with that person and move the needle. Okay, so sometimes when I'm coaching people, it's like, do you want, you're trying to have this conversation. Do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? Okay. And effective with political conversations mean you just move the needle a little bit. You just plant a seed that's gonna fester. It's gonna bother them. You just get them to say something they don't really believe in. And then that will move the needle. And so what we're going to do in this series of workshops is learn and practice these skills to improve your conversations. You'll learn how to avoid arguments, recover from that when you get in those stuck dialogues, and actually steer your conversations so that you move the needle with the other person, but preserve that relationship. I swear it can be done over and over again. And the workshops will focus on the concepts and the skills. We'll do absolutely concrete examples, and then we practice, and you'll take some of these things home, practice them, and then if you come back to the next session, we'll share them and unpack them and learn more about them together. I always recommend you start with non-political topics to practice the skills, and you can practice them until they become automatic. And you can practice them in the dentist's office, at work with your friends, your neighbors, the guy in the line at the grocery store, the teenager that you're having trouble with, your mother-in-law, anybody. You can practice these things, and they do become automatic, and they will make you more effective and in saving our country. So I think James is next. So that's my teaser for these workshops coming up.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the three laws of performance. This is based on a book by Steve Zaffron and Dave Logan from 2009. And these three laws are the basis really of a lot of really everything that people speak about and in their speaking. And so if you look at it, the first law is about performance and how it matches the situation and it appears to people, driven by their past views and anticipates futures, not just the facts. So people are always trying to fit what the other person is saying into their thought process to understand. But really, you have to come from listening to the person, kind of like what Kara was talking about. You got to listen to what the other person is saying and then speak to that. And then the second law is that situations appear through language, spoken or unspoken words that form people's reality. So everything, when people are saying how they feel about something, that's the way it is for them. That is their world. Their world is that occurring situation. If they're saying that, all immigrants are a bunch of drug dealers and bad people, that's how it appears for them. So it's about taking a look at how we can shift that, and then going to the third law, which is future-based language, like declarations and promises, reshapes the situations so that that we can move on and create a new possibility for people, and it unlocks our performance. So the by speaking and saying how you want things to be gives you more power to be able to speak to what's going on, and we can say how we want the situation to be in our country. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Thank you. And now we're moving on to, I think, Chris, right? I don't know who's next.
Yeah, I can do that. Hold on. So, you heard Joe talk about who our audience is and that not everyone needs the same message. So talking to your neighbor is different than talking to your legislator like Joe was doing. The tone matters as much as words. But today's session, we're going to be focusing on two specific groups, and you see them highlighted: your neighbors and the persuadable voters. And now I will pass it on to Melissa, who will introduce us to the Say This, Not That framework that Mindy put together for us.
There we go. So say this, not that. This is our classic do this, don't do it. And we're focusing largely on really being straightforward, delivering unifying messages, not polarizing messages. And if you think about the brownie metaphor, we're really sticking more with what the shared outcomes that benefit all of us are, rather than specific policy aspects that might be distracting, too complex. We don't want to get bogged down in the details. So what we do want is to really focus on the things that people might share with us, our shared values, and to contrast our values with those of the far right, or the people who are, or the values that we don't endorse, and that are not good for everybody. So the idea is to sort of have a universal framework that we are working from, and working from sort of not a zero-sum game, but a share that we can all benefit together. So what we want is, we are going to contrast our values with their values. We're not repeating or framing ideas that you don't believe in, even to argue. This is because all publicity is good publicity. You don't want to publicize the other statements or the other sorts of phrases that people use. You want to be authentic, straightforward, positive, and say things simply. And yeah, so I think, there we go. So for example, in the example that if you say tariffs are inefficient and harm global economic stability, that is pretty complex. It's true, but what's another way of saying that is more straightforward? And you could say tariffs raise grocery prices. If you want to say more, you could say this makes it a lot harder for everyone to take care of their family and put dinner on the table. So, and why? Because people care about those things. These are shared values and shared experiences that everyone could relate to. And so yes. So you want to empathize, you're empathizing, keeping language relatable, and you're not dismissing the concerns that people have by getting bogged down in policy jargon. Because people might think, well, who cares about tariffs, or who cares about the global economy? Even efficiency. You care more about things at home. Another example, if you talk about culture wars, DEI, first of all, you don't want to say culture wars, because that is can be someone else's viewpoint or someone else's language. If you say our children's freedom to be themselves and pursue their dreams, then you're stoking that sense of freedom. Freedom's important to everyone. People's children are important to them. And so it resonates across these different sort of ununifying sort of race, class, culture, gender, things that people can divide over. It's saying we are all one. We are all together on this. So do be affirming and hopeful and relatable, highlighting fairness
And don't repeat their framing or sound defensive. Stay grounded in universal love and freedom. That's where it's all at. It's not a zero-sum game. It is something we can all have a better life together than if we're separated and apart. I think that is we're up to Rebecca. I think it's the takeaway, Rebecca. And we're
Yeah,
going into
so
breakout rooms.
exactly. We're going to go to breakout rooms. We're going to have a quick 10-minute sort of like mini breakout room. So it's going to be a lightning round. So we're going to give you each breakout room is going to have 5 things, um, 5 examples of messaging no-nos, or what not to say. And so your group is going to come up with examples of effective messaging. And there's no right answer. The goal is just to kind of take the messages that we're saying are problematic for some reason or another, um, and kind of fix them using some of these do's over here. So with that, you can see on the right-hand side, these are your things, these are your messaging no-nos, and your assignment in your 10-minute lightning round breakout room is to come up with better ways to say that using some of these do's. So I'm going to go ahead and open the breakout rooms, and I will send your facilitators in after you very quickly. So here we go. Okay. So Cecilia goes to room 1. Beth goes to room. Chris goes to room 2. James goes to room 2. Joe's number 3. Kara's number 4. Laura's number 5. And Adrian's number 5. And then Melissa, you're number 6. And I will send the rest of you in here to rooms as well. So there you go. Stop share and share to All right, everybody's coming back now.
I got stuck there in the in-between for a minute. Whew.
You were in the Bardo?
I was in the Bardo. But I do appreciate having Ari and Boot both in my breakout room. Although I think having both of them in my breakout room, we get too focused on we don't get to the we didn't get to the answer.
The
We were
assignment?
yeah,
You
we
guys
were
started
way too focused on the before and didn't, yeah, there, go ahead, Boot, go ahead. You go ahead and tell him what you did. Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't what I did.
Oh, don't.
Ari had the answer. No, listen, we've got to be a human-based system.
No, you're
If we're
right. I know
not,
you're right.
we're fooling ourselves. Ari explained it all.
I know she did. I know. I know.
I just mess things up. You know that,
You
Cecilia.
don't mess them up. We didn't follow the assignment exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you, I had the super achiever group. They were done, all of them, in 4 minutes. Like totally, they took charge. They did it, and then they said, "How about we brainstorm a couple other ones that we'll just come up with off the top of our head?" And I think we got 2 or 3 more in. So
That's
go team two.
Go team two. And you wanted team one. Look at you.
But see, that's just it. The response has got to be a human-based response. I think that, Ori, am I misinterpreting what you were pointing out to us?
I think it was a perfect response.
All righty. So Cecilia, are you doing this one? So I think she may have stepped away. So basically, if you look at the things, there's no right answer. Obviously, there were a number of different things you could have come up with as alternatives to this. Looks like some folks are putting some different alternatives in the chat, but here's just some examples. Instead of saying alligator Alcatraz, which is a very unfair and negative framing, right? Because Alcatraz is, a famous prison for criminals, and people that are being put in this concentration camp in Florida are not criminals. And then, as Melissa pointed out when we were doing this, kind of prepping, is that just even this idea of being surrounded by alligators, and that if you try and escape, the alligators it's just very dehumanizing, right? So we just wouldn't use that kind of language. And then I think most of us have this kind of ingrained from, instead of illegal aliens, undocumented immigrants. And I won't go through them all. You guys can read them, but good job.
Awesome work. Cecilia, is this one you want me to do it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was not paying attention because because you go ahead.
Yeah, so we just want to shout out our colleague Mindy Ramsey. She kind of developed this say this, not that framework, and tailored it to how we talk about some of the elements of the vision forward concepts, these core beliefs that we talked about earlier. So this is a link, so you would click it and you would be able to see some of the messaging that has been developed specifically for these areas. You can kind of tweak it to either use it with your neighbors, use it with your legislators. It gives you the what to say, what not to say, and like the tone to kind of take with each audience. So and just remember, like, this is not a one size fits all. You want to make it feel authentic coming out of your mouth. So it'll be authentic to you. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris to introduce us to the 3 Vs.
Real quick, we have a hand up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Susan. You're good?
Can you unmute?
Oops.
I didn't mean to.
Hello. I just wanted to say hi. I was late coming
Oh,
and I
Hi
forgot
there.
what this was about. I've got on the phone with my daughter. She teaches school and she's had people picked up at her school and
Yeah.
they're afraid to come out anymore because
Yes.
they're documented people that they're legal, but they're keep going past her school out here in Metairie. I'm in a suburb of New Orleans, so
That's terrible. So
Yeah.
they're
sorry.
down here now. Um, and
Y'all
I
are going through it right now.
Mary Indivisible group, by the way, is very scared to do anything. They're very afraid. That's why they use Signal, and they I don't know. You have to go and meet them, and then they still question your if you're valid.
we use Signal too. We do it to be safe.
Right. And that's what they're doing is to be safe. Most
Right.
of them are young people and that they know how to do it, by the way. I did get it loaded on one of my phones, but it's one that's I don't use. And I use it to play games on. I still haven't used it because I don't know how to enter anybody's group to do it.
Oh.
But I'm figuring it out maybe. Anyway, thank you for the time. I won't take up your time.
Oh,
Thanks,
okay.
Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and get ready to start this next session. So this is where we're going to introduce you to the 3 Vs. Good messaging follows a simple but powerful 3-part structure that helps us connect emotionally with our audience and inspire action. So the 3V framework you may have heard about before. We've talked about Anat Shenker-Osario, and I earlier mentioned George Lakoff, who's a cognitive linguist who addresses framing principles. So part of what Anat says, when she introduces her, the 3 Vs, so values, villain, vision is what the 3 Vs stand for, is that these are communication strategies that where we can craft messages that resonate emotionally with people, and in doing so, mobilize them into action. So it transforms that dry policy talk that Rebecca was talking about before into compelling stories by starting with shared values, shared ideals, exposing obstacles, and ending with hope. So let me just kind of talk you through this. So the first is the value. That's where we lead with a shared ideal. And this is something that both you and your audience, whoever you're talking to, care deeply about. So this is that finding common ground phase. So it could be fairness, it could be security. We talked about security and safety in our breakout room, or community strength. So by naming this common value, we warm up the audience and unite them around why the issue matters without getting tangled too much in complicated policy details. The next thing we do is we name the villain. So the villain is the force that stands in the way of that ideal. So this could be inefficiency, it could be a competitor, it could be the Trump regime, or some systemic problem. So we clearly explain their motives to show what is blocking our shared value. So what this does is it creates a sense of urgency and invites the audience, or the person you're talking to see themselves as heroes ready to face the challenge. You're ready to face the villain, right? Ready for the fight. And then we finally present, this third step is presenting the vision, which is a clear, hopeful path forward where we and the audience can restore or protect that ideal that we started with it. And so using stories, visuals, plain language helps make the vision memorable and makes people want to join in. So let me give you an example of the 3 Vs in action, inspired by my little puppy who's learning how to use the doggy door. isn't always successful. Her name is Charlotte. So I was telling Rebecca about this, and so the example we have is this. So let's say someone says irresponsible dog owners are ruining the community garden for everybody. Okay, so to use our 3V framework. So what would be our shared value? So we might say something like, we all love the neighborhood green spaces where everybody enjoys fresh air and being outdoors, right? Like nobody can disagree with that. That's something we all share, right? Common ground. And so now who is the villain in this, right? So the irresponsible dog owners that have been leaving presents behind, and their dogs don't know better, but we do. And then what's our vision? You know, what do we want to see? What do we want to hope for? So and so let's keep space let's keep the space welcoming by working together, using the bags and bins at the pause and pickup station to help keep the garden clean and enjoyable for everyone. So you can see with this structure, a simple call to care becomes a relatable story that motivates real teamwork and positive change. We intentionally started with something that was not political, okay? And now we're going to transition into a political example before we go into the breakout rooms. Okay, so on this example, we're going to start out with, let's say that someone says something like, it's impossible to get ahead in the current system and we need change. So we'll start with a value statement, something that we can all agree with. So everyone deserves a fair chance to build a good life. People who work hard every day deserve a living wage that reflects their effort and dignity, right? That's something we can all get behind, right? Okay, and then the villain. So who's the villain in this? A rigged system that keeps everyday people struggling. Billionaires and powerful politicians use greed and lobbying to write their own rules, leaving working families behind. Get it? So that's the person that's getting in our way, right? And obviously has some unscrupulous motives to greed being one of them. So what's our vision? It's time we change that system. Together, we can build an economy that works for all, where hard work truly pays off and everyone has the opportunity to get ahead. So what we've just done is kind of talked you through the framework. And so I'm going to turn it over to not Melissa, Rebecca, who's going to get us all set up for breakout rooms. And what I'm going to really emphasize, okay, is that once we get into those breakout rooms, try and focus on the framework, because what we're doing is practicing the framework, not necessarily debating what the statement says, but trying to structure it into the values, villain, vision framework until that becomes second nature to us. All righty. Okay. So I am now going to turn it on over to Rebecca.
Jeannie's had her hand up for a minute.
Oh, okay. Jeannie, go ahead while Rebecca's getting set up anyway. So go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I just muted you again, Jeannie. Unmute yourself. I'm so sorry.
This is a me problem. I know I am the last time when I was sent to the breakout room for 10 minutes, room 4 just spun round and round and round and round, and it never let me in. And then when I came back, it said my chat was disengaged or something, and I wasn't allowed to chat. So I don't know. Zoom is out to get me tonight for some reason. I'm sorry.
Well,
All right.
hopefully we're gonna have a second chance, a breakout
Okay,
room. So
I'm
hopefully
gonna try again.
It works
I'm hanging
okay
in
this
there.
time. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that. It's always some technical thing. So
Yeah, thanks for your patience with us, Jeannie. We'll figure it out. Okay, so you guys are gonna get another chance to practice here. We're gonna do a little bit longer of a breakout room this time. Time it'll be 20 minutes, and we'll be applying that 3V structure or approach that we just learned to come up with effective examples or with examples of effective messaging. So each breakout room is going to tackle just one prompt. So I'm going to, in a second here, I'm going to bring up 6 prompts. Each room will just do one, and it'll be the number of the breakout room that you're in, and your moderator will know which one. So as a reminder, well, let me back up. So each of these statements, and I'll go ahead and show them, each of these statements are things that we agree with, but they are not phrased in the most effective way to get your point across. Either they are super jargony or like kind of complicated, or they've got some kind of problem with it, or maybe it repeats framing from, right-wing stuff. Anyway, what we're going to do is use this 3V structure to say the same thing, but in that more effective way. So when you're in there, make sure that you get somebody to write down what your group comes up with so that we can all share them in the chat when we get back. You can just have one person in your group do it, just jot it down, but it'll be those 3 parts. And just as a reminder, I know it's really tempting because we all love politics here and we love debating, but this breakout room is to practice the 3V structure. We're not here to like talk about policies and yada yada, even though that's really fun. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and send everybody to the rooms. And again, just a reminder, you'll each just do one. So here we go. Open all the rooms. And I'm going to send people to their rooms. Okay. And you guys have the same numbers that you did last time. Facilitators do. So Dr. Chris, you are in room 2.
Okay.
Jim, you're in there with Dr. Chris. And Joe, you are in room 3. Okay. And everybody else can just I'm going to send people to rooms. So you should be able to join your breakout room. All right, people are starting to trickle back in a little at a time. Got about 20 something people in here. I want to see about 50 or 60. Here they all come. Here they all come. Awesome. Can everybody still see my screen okay, or do I need to?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You have the breakout room screen?
Yes.
Yes, it's up.
Okay, cool. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I think we're all back now. So how was it? I hope it was awesome. I hope you guys had a good time. I'm sure you guys did good work. I did want to just share a couple of possible ways that you could have approached fixing these messages. So I'll just do one as an example since we are running a little bit ahead of time. And maybe if any group feels like any one or two groups want to raise their hand and share theirs. I
And we
think we
can
have a little
also,
bit of time for that. Yeah,
and people can also put the what they wrote down in the chat in case we don't get to
exactly.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Kathy, yeah. Which group are you in?
I'm Kathy from Algonquin. I'm in group 4.
Okay, let me pull that up.
And I just
Okay.
want to get it out of the way because I'm out of breath from note taking. So many good ideas.
Awesome. What'd you get? Okay, so the bad message or the lackluster message was universal registration and integrity standards will help safeguard our elections and due process protections. It rhymes, but it's kind of a mouthful.
It is. And just right off from the beginning, we deconstructed our statement or the statement number 4 because the group felt that it was two separate ideas. One was voting and one was due process.
Mhm.
And so we leaned more towards, or we discussed actually, the values of our democracy and uh, safeguarding our voting registration. So our value for that was our democracy rests on the idea that every eligible citizen deserves to have their vote counted. And there was a lot of discussion about how the words have power, Ori said, and our group had 2 lawyers, so I was a little intimidated here. So, but but everybody agreed that they were, as I said, the 2 different ideas. But our villain in all of this, then we felt, was the authoritarian actors, such as if somebody asked for an example, like Trump administration, Supreme Court, state legislators, and agencies. But there was also some discussion that just by mentioning those, you might cause some discussion that then people will just start to fight over. So keeping it either way, let them ask for an example. Otherwise, keep it as like vague, like authoritarian actors. Um, so that it doesn't become an argument right away. Either way, it's going to be an argument. But anyway, our vision was that elected officials represent all citizens. Our elected officials represent all citizens in voting, and that's our vision. And then we went into big discussions about how difficult it is to get shared values and get everybody. It's like I discussed, or like we all discussed, by naming certain people, then you start an argument. And then some people will not want to be involved if it's too specific. Does any of
Yeah,
that make sense?
I think it does. Yeah, and you can kind of see in the example that I came up with, which is by no means the right answer. It's just an answer. So I think we both kind of landed in a similar place. So
Yeah,
well
I
done.
see. I see
Nice job,
that.
group 4. And that was Kara's group, am I right?
Yeah,
Who?
Kara's group, yes, Kara.
Okay, nice.
I was confusing it with my first group, so yeah, Kara.
Yeah, I switched y'all around so you
Yeah,
wouldn't get too like comfortable with.
yeah. No, and people had, like Nora said, the villain can be the trickiest part, and it can cause a problem in any discussion. And Bruce and everybody agreed that finding a common ground can sometimes be so difficult in this.
Yeah.
And there was one really, Jim said, you know, when you're having these discussions, if you get them to say what the shared value is, then you can go from there. But like if you're the one starting it, then it's like you're making the argument. If you can encourage them to somehow pull that out of their conversation of what they think the shared value is, then maybe you have a more level communication grounds. But anyway,
Yeah.
I will stop talking.
Well done. Well done. Thank you for taking notes and for communicating it all. I think that that was an excellent example for us to all walk through. So, I will put the slides in the chat one more time, and you can see the solutions that I came up with, not as a messaging expert, but just as me. And if you want to have your groups drop what you guys came up with in the chat, that would be awesome. Adrian, you have your hand up. Unmute.
I do. Yeah, I just wanted to read ours out loud. We had some interesting phrasing, as I think a lot of people did, but we were kind of curious about opportunity crisis. I've heard of crisis opportunity, which I relate to a Chinese expression that, you know, in crisis you can find opportunity. So I'll read these, but Boot Money also had an addition, I believe, like a second after I left the group. So, group 5. Our value was we all want the basics of life. The villain was systemic greed, and the vision was for the present and future, we want the ability to thrive and access necessities, especially housing, childcare, education, and we added healthcare. Not optional.
Yeah, totally. Healthcare is not
So that
optional.
So that's it. And I don't know if time permits, you know, Boot Money, I would love for him to say what he had to say after I left the group.
Yeah, Mr. Money, would you like to chime in real quick? Where is he? Okay.
Bingo.
There you
There it
go.
is. Yeah, let me remember. Hey, Laura, what was it that we were actually talking about?
Well, I got a little
opportunity.
bit of what you had, but then my computer froze up. But I got that you said something about restricting the opportunity, reducing
Oh,
the
yeah,
size
yeah,
of a
yeah.
pie.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Adrian, on where is that number 5?
We must
It says
confront
something
the
about the opportunity crisis. And the crisis there is that if opportunity is restricted, the pie doesn't grow. And if the pie doesn't grow, it gets smaller for everyone, not just the people being left out. Eventually, it'll cease to exist. So the affordability is survival. That's
Yeah,
about it.
that's a good ad. Well done, Mr. Money. Thank you for sharing. Dr. Melissa, go ahead.
I just want to say for number 6, and I don't know um, if our note taker wants to comment on this. We had a lot of really great ideas, and they pretty much aligned with these. And I think we were trying to be really more specific on the vision as far as actually creating solution. So just like comment, if anyone wants to comment from the group, feel free.
Oh, I do see that Lisa, I believe she was in your group. She put yours in the chat.
Okay, good.
And the vision portion was, we want to see our immigration system fixed so that people who need asylum and workers who are needed by our society can come and contribute to our society and make us even greater. I think that's a wonderful vision.
Thanks, Lisa.
Beth, go ahead, Beth.
Okay. So where's my notes? There they are. So we just kind of wanted to keep it simple. We're assuming that that's what our base audience would be. So our value is to protect the rule of law by defending American freedom and values. And the villain is greedy people and corporations. And the vision is we want to reform and create a more perfect union. We thought that was as easy as apple pie.
I love that. Very good. All right. Can't really put a bow on it better than that, Beth. And that is why you are so Beth-tastic.
Beth-tastic. Nice. I love it.
All right, folks. With that, I think you've all kind of got the hang of it, and this will take practice. And in future sessions, you will get the opportunity for practice. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Chris for wrap up and what's next.
Okay, so the first thing we have is just some additional resources on political messaging. So we had mentioned Mindy's Say This, Not That. So we have that. And then I also talked about Anat Shenker-Osario. And she has a toolkit that has lots of different messaging guides. So anyway, you guys have the slides. And then one of the things that we're going to be doing is introducing you to Braver Angels, which is an organization. They're called a bridging organization, and they have right-leaning people and left-leaning people in the group. And so I gave you some teasers on that before we actually set up some of the sessions. So anyway, that'll give you like a little bit of an overview about what that group does. And then we'll set up some sessions. Some of us in the group, like Adrian, myself, and Peggy, have actually gone to in-person sessions that they've had here in Texas, but they're a national group, and I think you'll get a lot out of their model. Next slide. So here are some just recordings that I am going to highly recommend. The very first one, because it so relates to this project. It's Heather Cox Richard talking to Nicole Wallace. I've mentioned it a couple times in Coffee and Conversation. The other is Anat Shenker-Osario does a messaging workshop on advancing our values, but she has some really good examples. And, you heard Rebecca talk about that brownie analogy that comes from this session, and she's probably used it in others as well. But it's probably one of the best messaging workshops that I've been to, and then also one with the Women's Law Center. Okay, next slide. And then this is the exciting part where we're getting into just kind of the way ahead in terms of phase 2 of the Vision Forward project. And Kathy, I see your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and go through this real quick, and then I'll open it up and see if we have any other questions. So everything we have been doing, not just with this project, but with many others, like sharing our stories and sorting soup, and I could go on, are about equipping us, or even the hands-on technology, right? Sessions are about making us more effective activists. So our next phase of Vision Forward is, we're getting ready, guys. The midterms are right around the corner. We're going to get through. I know here in San Antonio, we go out and hit the streets canvassing starting in January. Not that we have let up. I mean, we have canvassing going on all year long, but really ramping it up. So there's kind of three distinct things in terms of the way forward. So one is just introducing you to this idea of conversational activism. So this is just where, we just practice it today, where you're having conversations with neighbors, and you're just getting a discussion going. You're making sure that you're really listening to the person. So that's, just talking to people, okay, about our pro-democracy vision. So I see everybody on this call as a conversational activist. And then we've all heard of canvassing, but there's a real big emphasis on what they're calling relational canvassing. Indivisible National calls it the neighbor to neighbor program that they've talked about. So what's different about relational canvassing is you take your network of people, the people you know that are in your circle, your friends, neighbors, and you do outreach to them. You maybe have them over for a house party. You use storytelling as part of a way to communicate how policies impact people. And so this is real different from going door to door like traditional canvassing, where you have a script and you're really trying to establish a connection and a trusting relationship with people that you know. And deep canvassing is related to that, but that's where you really engage with people. It's a more long-term conversation where you spend a lot of your focus just doing, listening, reflective listening, making sure you understand what a person's concern is, personal storytelling. And so as you're getting ready to whether you have your conversational activist hat on or you're doing relational or deep canvassing, one of the things that we'll be doing is preparing you for that in some of these upcoming sessions as we enter into phase 2 of the Vision Forward process. And the one thing we know about these techniques is they really do, we have better outcomes when you connect with people on a personal level and can inspire them to action because, they can see how some of these policies, just by sharing personal stories, do in fact impact people. So next slide. So the exciting thing is we have some experts in our group. And so you got a sneak peek of Kara's upcoming sessions, what I really meant to say. And she will have, as she said, some practice sessions where you'll get a chance to learn those, build on those skills that she's going to teach us. And I'm excited. And then James has the 3 laws of performance framework that he also gave you a little bit of a teaser on. We are going to continue to build on the 3 V's framework. Some of you may have attended Eric Vladimir's session on storytelling, where again, she uses, very similar to the 3 V's, but then adds the story piece to it. I've already mentioned the truth sandwich model for disrupting misinformation, and then also earlier mentioned the Braver Angels workshops that we'll have. So Braver Angels uses a model, a framework, where you start off by just listening, just deeply listening to the person's concern, acknowledging, that's that reflective listening where you say, what I think I heard you say, or what I understand you're saying is this, and you give them a chance to say, yeah, that is, you got the message. And then as the conversations develop, then it doesn't always get to this step, then you get to a pivot thing where you say, I'm wondering if you would be open to hearing my perspective on this. And sometimes they might say, no, not really. Like you can tell it's still too heated. And then you need to do listening and acknowledging a little bit more. And then, but if in fact they say, yeah, I am open to hearing your perspective, then you give your perspective on something. So that's the Bravers Angels model. So we will, like I said, introduce you to all of those things. So you will have these as tools in your toolbox. So the other thing I wanted to say is that Joe Woods, some of you may be interested in taking that one pager that Joe first started, and then we built upon that through the Vision Forward project, to your representatives to start this dialogue. Because in that one pager, we basically said, look, We need fighters. We need people that are gonna, stand up, and have clear messaging on the things that are important to everyday people. And this is what we want you to focus on. That's all laid out in that one pager, okay, which is loosely a one pager because it's really a two pager because it's printed back to back. But we got it down as tight as we could do it. I know that I've shared that with my representative, or my representative is Chip Roy, but I've shared it with Greg Casar. He is the chair of the Progressive Caucus. And so we're hoping to connect with his communications team out of DC to basically say, look, this came out of our Indivisible group. This is what people want. This is what we want you to do. We want you to be on the steps of the Capitol every day, giving us clear communication and clear messaging on the issues that are important to everyday people. So I'm going to leave you with this before I turn it over to Cecilia. And these are the words of Anat Shanker-Osario regarding messaging. Here's what she says. So if your words don't spread, they don't work. It's absolutely vital to understand that a message is like a baton that needs to be passed from person to person to person to be effective. And on that note, I am going to pass the baton to Cecilia, and then after Cecilia, we will open it up for some questions.
Okay. Okay. All right. So tonight, y'all, we started by remembering why we're here. Because we refuse to accept that this is the best that America can be, right? Because we believe that there is a better path forward. So over the past 2 hours, you have learned frameworks. Say this, not that. The 3 V's, the principles of effective communication. But the frameworks are just scaffolding. What makes this all, what matters is what you build with them, right? So every single one of you is now equipped to be a messenger for this movement. Not because you're a politician or a media strategist, but because you're a neighbor, you're a friend, you're a colleague, you're a community member, and you have something authentic and powerful to say. And when someone asks you what you believe in, you can now answer with clarity and conviction. And when you hear fear-mongering or lies, you can respond with the truth. When you encounter someone who's struggling or discouraged, you can paint a picture of what's possible. You can call them to something bigger than themselves. The 2024 election reminded us of something hard but true, that messaging matters. Clarity matters. Being heard matters. But it also reminded us of something hopeful. So do we. So does this work. So does what happens in these Zooms and in every kitchen table conversation that follows. Between now and our next session, I want y'all to practice. Have one conversation where you use the 3 V's. Share the brownie analogy with someone. Notice where you're tempted to argue about policy and instead try leading with values. Make some mistakes, learn, refine, and practice. And know this, you are not alone in this. There are thousands of people across this country in rooms and Zooms just like this one, learning the same frameworks, practicing these same tools, and speaking these same truths. We are building something together. We are building a movement that cannot and will not be ignored. The vision is real. The path is yours. Thank y'all for showing up. Thank you for caring. Thank you for believing that another America is possible. We'll see you next time. Now, go out there with our pro-democracy messenger and work to change some hearts and minds. And